Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining another episode of the Emergence Show. I'm Nico Farah, your host, and we continue our conversation about the latest and greatest in emerging tech and immersive experiences. We have an amazing guest, Bob Bjarke, today. He is a great creative director. You probably have seen his very fun, engaging content on LinkedIn and other social media platforms. He not only creates content himself, but also he's behind some amazing projects, including Walmart Discovered AR experience. So we are thrilled to have him here with us to spend 1 hour sharing all of his insight. And yeah, feel free to engage with us in the comments. Hi, Bob. Thank you so much for being here. Please tell us more about yourself.
Thanks, Nico. I'm very excited to be here with you guys today. I love the Emergent Show. I love this black background that you've given me to kind of like immerse myself in. So I'm excited to be here. Like you mentioned, I'm a creative director. A lot of my work is in the advertising and social media space. I've been around for a while, done a lot of projects with a lot of different brands. And so I'm just excited to share some of my background and what I've learned and the way I approach creativity in new technology. So thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you for being here. And thanks to our amazing community for tuning in, Gabriel and everyone else who is there. Please engage in the comments. Let us know what you think about our discussion. Ask questions. We're going to make sure we cover as much as we can. So to get us started, Bob, tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get started? How did you move and transition into using emerging technologies? Tell us more before we get into your amazing presentation.
Yeah, totally. So I started my career at ad agencies. My first agency was Leo Burnett in Chicago, where we were working on projects for brands like Cadillac, Kellogg's, and Nintendo. We were building a lot of interactive websites for them. We were building even banner ad campaigns, if you remember those, in addition to big TV spots and print ads, and really what you'd call like a 360 campaign. That's what we did in those days for those brands. That was my first agency. I loved working there. I learned a lot. After Burnett, my wife and I moved to Los Angeles. I did a lot of freelance work for many agencies in LA, like Chiat, Team One, RPA, just a really great community, creative community in Los Angeles. And I joined Meta, Facebook, in 2014. And so what my team's purpose was to create engaging video ad content for brands when video ads were a totally new thing. And that's probably hard to imagine, but in those days, we were building an entire ecosystem of ad products that advertisers could use to connect with people, build their brands, and sell products. So in that span, from going from creative agency to Meta, and then working on stuff like video ads, but then partnering with product teams to build new interactive ad formats, and then moving forward into VR and AR and even some AI work at Meta. I've had a chance to be a part of this great evolution of technology from some kind of old school stuff like print and TV all the way through some of the newest technology that we have. And I'm excited to share, how I think about that space and some of the projects that I've worked on.
Awesome. Let's get into it. Yeah, while you pull up the presentation, I want to thank our amazing audience again. We're going to talk about all different aspects of the projects that Bob has worked on, and we're going to, answer your questions as well. So feel free to put up your questions in the chat, and we're going to get it started.
All right. Well, let me know if this is presenting. Can you see everything?
Yeah, it's all good.
All right. So, Nico, am I ready to go? Should I just kick off
here?
Yes,
please. Yes. And audience is ready. Let's go.
All right. So folks, stop me if you have questions. Would love to have a discussion with y'all as we go through this. I have some breaks built in for discussion, but if there's anything you have that you want to talk about, just leave it in the comments and we'll address it. Sure. The way that I think about these new spaces and new technology, even old technology, is I think about it through this lens of discovery. And I think that one really interesting way to think about new technology is to think about giving people a moment to discover something. And I'll talk a little bit more about what that means, and we'll go into detail. But new technology and the thrill of discovery is a very exciting space. And I think we can learn a lot. As I mentioned, my name is Bob. I have this journey from ad agencies to technology, and now I do a lot of freelance and consulting work for brands and tech companies and startups, investment firms, all sorts of clients. And throughout my time, in this business, one thing that I've seen remain the same, while so much has changed, is that advertisers and brands and even just regular people, we all want to connect with each other. And so whatever technology we're using, that challenge remains the same. How do I share an idea with somebody? How do I help them remember something? How do I help connect them to what is important to me? And so that's something that I think is important as we go through this deck and as we go through this talk. As I mentioned, I was at ad agencies like Leo Burnett for a long time, and Team One. I did some work for Beats for a while when they were a young company, and I was able to spend time on set making TV spots with some really famous and influential people like Beyonce, LeBron, Bradley Cooper. But even while we're using or working with these really, really powerful, influential people, the challenge is always the same. How do we connect with people? How do we make people understand what we want them to? And so like the bonus part of this section is at the end of the discussion, I will finally reveal who was nicer on set. Nico, I know you're curious about it.
Can't wait.
Yeah, but you got to wait till the end. That's how these things work. Sure. As I mentioned before, I think the key challenge for advertisers, for creatives, one way to think about it, the way I think about it is when we're building something from a TV spot to an interactive thing to a VR experience, what do we want people to remember? We're going to share a message with people. If we're building TV, we have 30 to 60 seconds, maybe. What do we want to tell them that becomes stuck in their brain and they remember next time they're at the store or next time they're thinking about buying a new car? Or if we're building a VR experience or something in AR, or something with AI, what do we want people to come away from that experience having learned? Can we change their mind? Can we expose them to something new? What do we want them to remember? Right. And I love to go back into the history of how we communicate with each other before we go forward. And I think about ads like this. Maybe, one of my favorite ads that I've ever seen in any medium is this ad for Volvo. And, the idea is that you can use art and copy in just a few words and a really well-designed piece of communication to help something stick inside of somebody's brain. And, when I see an ad like this and I see this copy line, we designed every Volvo to look like this. It's very counterintuitive, right? We don't expect a car ad to see something, a car that's been mangled and been in an accident. But for Volvo, who wants people to remember that they're the safest car in the world in the 80s and 90s, this is the sort of thing that people will remember. That if you happen to be in an accident, the back and the front of the car will be destroyed, but the important part, the stuff in the middle, the people who are riding inside of it are going to be okay. And when I look at this ad, I think this is kind of a perfect piece of communication for the technology and for the medium that it's being displayed on. I also think of ads like this from the 2000s. You may have seen this one. Maybe you haven't. I find this one to be kind of obscure, but a lot of ad people really like it. And what happens in this ad is that you kind of see this big guy going around the city. You're not quite sure what he's doing, but he's kind of disrupting everything. You saw him like messing with an umbrella. He knocks the hat off of that guy. There's moments of interview where he's kind of talking about being misunderstood and no one really knows like what he does, but he still continues to kind of wreak havoc through the city. And over time, as you watch this ad, you start to put together the pieces in your mind and you realize that this guy, this character, is personifying the wind. He's playing the part of the wind in this ad. And the ad ends up being an ad for wind power, for a technology company who's building wind turbines and wind farms to harness the power of the wind. And what's really fun about this ad is that it kind of starts in this place that you're not sure what's going on, but as a viewer, you kind of get to put the pieces together for yourself. And, at the end, they reveal it for you, but by this time you've pretty much figured it out. And I think what I love about this kind of communication, whether it's that print ad that I shared a moment ago or that TV spot, is that it allows the viewer to discover something on their own and to put the pieces together and connect something in their own brain. And that kind of connection forms a pretty deep memory. It forms something inside of your brain. And I love this quote from Stanley Kubrick, the great film director, who I think put it better than I've ever seen this idea kind of articulated before. And I'm just going to read this whole thing. Bear with me. But if you really want to communicate something, even if it's just an emotion or an attitude, let alone an idea, the least effective and the least enjoyable way is directly. It only goes about an inch. But if you can get people to the point where they have to think a moment what it is you're getting at, and then discover it, the thrill of discovery goes right through the heart. And I think for all of us who've heard a really great joke or who have told a really awesome story, and you get to kind of see your audience maybe confused at first, or maybe think it's going one way and then it comes back another way. When you have that human interaction of putting something together in your brain or helping someone understand an idea, you really understand that this quote, I think this idea of the thrill of discovery going right into the heart, I believe that to be true. And so this kind of approach is something that drives my creativity. Whether I'm doing something professionally for a brand, whether I'm doing something on my own in writing or in music, this is what I'm hoping to build. This is kind of the standard that I've set for myself. And I hope that I'm able to achieve that as often as I can. And that's what I'm hoping to share with you guys today, is some work that I think does provide for a bit of this thrill of discovery.
I love this part. If I can pause here for a second. We often talk about how we need to create engaging and interactive experiences. And this is a great point, that we actually make the audience be part of this process, part of this experience, for them to actually have a role to discover the outcome that we want them to discover. This is very powerful. So yeah, I love it. And I think often we also think about, like, even in relationships, having a little bit of mystery is actually a cool thing, because again, it gives that feeling of, I'm discovering something over time, and makes things just more exciting.
Yeah, I totally agree that it feels like a very human idea. And I think this idea transcends any technology and is something that is just true about people. And that's why I love it, because it gives us a framework to build work across all media, even in interpersonal situations, as you say. I think it's just a fantastic standard to hold as we go forward.
Awesome. And I have a question about, that part that you mentioned, memorable experiences. Is that something that you kind of know from the beginning when you start a project, that this is what I want them to remember, and then I'm going to plan everything around it? Or you kind of get started with different ideas and then you come up with that memorable part later on? How does it work?
Yeah, and that's something I think that I really enjoyed about working at advertising agencies for so long, is that really good agencies and really good clients understand that it's important to declare this memory at the beginning of the project. So a brand will come to an agency and say, hey, we're launching a new car, or there's this new breakfast cereal, and here's the single most important thing we want people to remember is X, or it's Y. And that is the beginning of the process, where the creative team can then say, okay, this is what we want people to remember. Let's design an ad that will articulate that. And there are hundreds or millions or billions of ways of kind of arriving at that point. How many different ways can you express an idea that will get people to remember that your car now has 3 rows of seating or something. There are a lot of ways to do that, and good brands and good creative agencies understand that if you kind of agree upon this moment or this thing that will become a memory lodged in someone's brain, and if you commit to it, you'll be able to make something really cool that allows people to kind of discover it and experience it for themselves.
Amazing. And we have a great comment from Zach. He says, love this code, great antidote to the frequent request to over-explain everything, explicit at the peril of provocation. Awesome. I appreciate it, Zach. And we have another comment from Dominic. A mentor shared their mentor's version of this. All great stories or ideas can be represented by a near perfect circle that stops just shy of being complete. Beautiful. Thank you,
That is
everyone.
great. Thank you, both of those. And I think that's right. I think the temptation to explain is something we need to kind of always back away from, and we should instead build something that lets the audience member figure it out on their own whenever possible, to create these really thrilling moments.
Beautiful. Let's continue. This is amazing.
So because we're talking about technology, we're going to start to kind of back into some approaches that help us like make use of technology. When new technology appears, how do we start to use it in a way that can create these moments for people? And so, like I said before, if we kind of go back first and we think about print ads as technology or TV as technology, what are their capabilities? And this will all be familiar to all of you, but print technology might be like the fact that these ads appear between articles, that you have words and pictures and full pages. You can use design and layout. I mean, I think when I look at this Volvo ad, the way that the layout of the front and the end of the car align perfectly with the paragraphs on the right and the left, like that almost makes me mad how good it is. And I think those kinds of tools are really helpful. TV tech is between programs or between program breaks, or you've got sound and moving images and you have a full screen and you can use a narrative, you can tell a story and you have maybe 30 seconds or more. Like those are the attributes or the capabilities of the technology. And as we go forward in the new technology, it's really great to start making lists of what these new technological pieces do, and then think about how we might use those tools to help connect with people. And then the question is, how do we apply this kind of thinking to new technology, and how do we use new technology to help create these memorable moments for people? So I'm just going to share a couple pieces of work, and then we can have a discussion and move forward. But one of my favorite pieces that I was lucky to work on from the early days of mobile video was this example from Lexus, and huge shout out to my friends at Team One, the agency who worked on this. They're fantastic, creative people, and the Lexus clients as well. But the idea here was that in this new age of mobile video technology, I think this was from 2015, one of the technological attributes that we have is that we can build audiences of people almost infinitely. We can build groups of parents who love dogs, or baseball players who like beer. We can combine these interests and build ads specifically for them. And at the time, we had never done this before. The industry had never done something like this before. And we were really lucky to partner with Team One and Lexus on this project, where we built thousands of ads in a single campaign that appealed to people based on their interests. And so we were able to articulate an idea about this new vehicle who was all about going beyond utility and going into style, and use style moments from the world to appeal to different audiences with different tastes. So there were lots of ways to articulate this. The campaign was really, really successful and kind of defined personalization campaigns at scale for an industry. For several years, this was kind of like the benchmark of how to create digital ad campaigns on mobile platforms. So I think when we think about new technology, this is essentially a video ad, but what is new about it is the ability to segment and build really large audiences out of people who love different things and appeal to them based on their interests. Move forward a few years. This is an ad for Honda, who was also launching a new car. We had a new ad product at Facebook. This ad product was fully interactive. It was like you could touch and swipe and even shake your phone to impact what was happening on the screen. And this ad format had been built for the mobile gaming industry, but we kind of hacked it to create something new for automotive clients. And so this was essentially an interactive comic book where Honda and their amazing agency, RPA, had created this really great group of still image assets, and they had it in their TV spot as well, where they would use this like comic book style storytelling. But we wanted to take this kind of flat, not interactive material and put it into an interactive format and let people drive the story literally, so they could kind of tap through. And there were moments we asked them to like swipe to clear of obstacles, or like tap really fast to kill this giant spider or something. But, again, rather than kind of just telling them how fun the car is and how much of an adventure driving it is, let's actually let people discover that on their own by finding themselves in the middle of an adventure and taking part in it. So this is another example of like, how do we use the tools that we have to help people discover the message and the idea. One last piece before we take a break is this campaign we did. This was actually a campaign for Facebook careers. Facebook at the time was looking to hire a lot more engineers. And so they wanted to create a campaign that would appeal specifically to the engineering mindset. So my team was able to create an AR effect that allowed engineers not only to like understand that Facebook is a cool place to work, sure, but to step into something and actually solve a puzzle with an AR effect. So in this example, we have people playing a game where their hand is tracked through the surface. They have to move it around and follow the directions. There are no instructions, so they kind of have to figure it out on their own. But once they solve the puzzle, you see this cool animation and a secret is revealed, and they're able to go and learn more about these potential positions. But by using the kind of magical capabilities of AR and the fact that it can track your hand in space and follow you as you move, we allowed people to discover that they can unlock their career potential at Meta through this unlocking game experience. So these are just a few examples of how in these future technologies, how we might use them to help people discover something and have these moments on their own. So just a couple of attributes, like we kind of broke down TV and print a minute ago, breaking down some of this new technology. We've obviously got video and animation. We have these audiences that we can target. We can personalize the creativity for audiences. We have interactivity, and this is only growing with more stuff like AI-powered interactivity, headsets, and camera access on your mobile phone. Like these are just like the crayons that we use to draw our pictures and tell our stories. But that's kind of how I think about these technological pieces, is like, how do we use this technology to tell a story about the brand? What is the overlap of the brand and technology? For example, that Honda ad is like, the car is really fun and adventure. Well, let's use the technology to give people an adventure on their phones. I think that's like kind of how I evaluate these spaces. But that's a really good place to pause.
Amazing.
Have a quick chat.
Thank you for sharing that. That was awesome. And I loved how you showcased with different examples, like the personalization at the scale with that Facebook video ads, and then interaction at the scale with that comic book, and then maybe storytelling at the scale with the Facebook career example. So I'm curious, when you're talking to your colleagues from the ad industry, and not everyone is really as excited and as open about these new technologies. What type of discussion you currently have with them? What advice do you give them, those who are kind of hesitant to adopt these new technologies?
Yeah, I think, for me, I've always loved to get my hands dirty with new tools. I remember in the late 90s, like coding my own websites and using software like Dreamweaver and Fireworks. Shout out to all the Dreamweaver users in the audience. But, I think what's most fun about these things is not just thinking about them or understanding them, but actually making stuff with new technology. So that's always my first recommendation, is for anyone who's kind of like hesitant or confused or intimidated by something like AI or AR. There are so many ways to just get going and make something. And I think when people do that, they'll find that they have better ideas about their space. They're more informed. They know what the technology does really well, or doesn't do, or just does okay. And so that's always my first recommendation, is just to dive in and make something, whether it's, even if it's just for you or just for fun, just make something and you'll understand the space better and you'll feel more comfortable.
I love it. And you can feel free to like remove your full screen because you want to see the comments. I think that would be exciting for you as well.
Okay.
But yeah, so I actually love this advice that you gave, because I see how you're, for example, creating your short form content, which is not as easy for a lot of us. It takes a lot of work. Gen Z is so comfortable. They've been on TikTok, but it's very exciting to see that, you know, folks like you bring in their talents and create their own version of magic with this new tech. We have a couple of questions. First, Chris is asking, do you foresee any collaboration with communities and brands going forward in generating content for advertising?
Yeah, I mean, I think this kind of goes back to what you were just saying, Nico, about this idea of, you know, creating your own content. That's something that I find equally rewarding and terrifying, is making videos and like putting it out on Instagram or TikTok, because, you know, often, you know, maybe you'll fail, maybe your ideas won't be that great, or maybe you won't get many likes. I mean, you know, it's terrifying, right? But you have to do it in order to kind of understand how these technologies work, what they do and don't do, how, you know, what is the creator mindset? How does it change your idea? If you know you need to make a short, you know, 45-second video out of it, does it kind of alter the way you think about the idea? So I think as a creative person, kind of going through this whole life cycle of idea, making it, sharing it, is hugely important. And obviously to this question, like, we're only seeing more and more advertising, creative and media spend going toward creators. Nico, I'd love to know if you've seen any of that as well, but like, definitely I've noticed that. And I think it's very quantifiable at this point.
And what's exciting about this community movement is that even though communities are nothing new, but we see that brands are even transitioning away a little bit from the influencer marketing to community marketing. I have seen community trips that brands are organizing rather than just paying for those fancy trips of influencers. So it's actually very exciting to me to see some normal everyday people are being part of the stories that brands are telling, and it's much more resonating with most of us. So that's really exciting. Thank you for that question, Chris. And to the point you made, Bob, about creating your content, I think it's very important to get our hands dirty. A lot of like marketers or others, they just outsource it without actually trying it themselves, whether you're activating in gaming or social media. Unless you actually do it yourself at least a few times, you are not going to learn, and you're not going to be helpful to give guidance to whoever you're outsourcing to. I personally have learned it, and I'm sure a lot of our audience have tried it. There's so much learning that it doesn't show in the beginning. So definitely recommend trying it yourself. Another quick question. As someone whose career has evolved from web and traditional advertising design to innovative technologies, what advice do you have for people with a wide range of interest in new technology on how to hone in a specialty? Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's all about just what is most interesting to you. I think there are any variety of creative, you know, endeavors you could take on as a person who has lots of interests. And I think you should just start with what is most interesting to you. So if you're really interested in AI at the moment, or if you want to create a short film, just go and do that, and go and do as many as you want, as many as you feel like doing until you're ready to move on, and see how that goes. And I think a lot of times what I've noticed with myself or with others in my business is that enthusiasm is very contagious, and people see that you're passionate about it, and they want to, generally, I think the creative community wants to support others who are making in the space. So just find something you're interested in and make a bunch of it and see where that takes you.
Amazing, amazing. All right, let's go back to the presentation. For the sake of time, we'll come back to the rest of the questions, hopefully towards the end. But I love the conversation. So let's keep going through the presentation. I know there's so much more goodness to share.
Yeah, are you able to see
Yes.
my screen? Yeah, okay. So this next section is about even newer technologies. We started in the old days, the 80s and 90s and 2000s. We shared some stuff from the last 5 or 10 years. And now we're going to look at some pieces kind of in the AR, VR world and in AI. And so one of my favorite projects that I worked on at Meta was this project called Escape Plan. This was a project that we built for the government agency called FEMA, in partnership with Ad Council and with an amazing developer called Make Me Pulse, based in Europe. And the idea here is that there are a lot of house fires in America every year, way more than you'd think. And a lot of them are caused by, electrical problems or cooking or anything you can imagine. But there are a lot of them. And we wanted to see if we could use the metaverse or, a headset and mobile connective experience to keep people safe in real life. And so we built this experience called Escape Plan. And essentially the way it works is that it takes two players. One person is in a headset and they're in a home in which there is a fire happening. Their partner is on a mobile device and the partner's sitting next to them, and the two need to work together. So the person on the mobile device has a floor plan in front of them, so they know exactly where the headset person needs to go to get out. And the headset person can see the danger and make the choices along the way. And we designed this to roll out so that it could be shared at places like community centers, neighborhood activities where people who maybe don't have access to VR might experience it for the first time. They might experience this with another person, with a family member. And the whole point of this is to help people have an experience where they go home and immediately make a plan for how to get out of their house if there's a house fire. So in order to do that, sure, we could make some ads or some billboards or whatever and kind of tell people like, hey, you need to make a plan. But what if we actually give people the experience of leaving a place that's on fire in order to realize the importance of making a plan? So that's one way that I think we need to think more about these VR experiences is like, what do we want people to come away from them with? And how do we design the experience around that idea? And this was just like such a cool project and was really, really fun. I think it's still live, and this is all based on the web, which is amazing. It's a web-based VR and mobile experience. There's so much in this project. I could keep going forever, but I'm gonna stop there unless there are any questions.
Wow, this is amazing. So we can use these great technologies not just for entertainment, but also for education and information to our audience. Such a good point.
Yeah, that's the hope. Here's one that recently launched. This is an AR experience for Walmart. Walmart had built this really great world on Roblox called Walmart Discovered. And essentially that Roblox experience is something that players can go into and just discover all the coolest stuff on Roblox. It's really like not about Walmart that much, which I really admire about that. They just built this experience for Roblox players to go in and find cool new GC and find cool new games, etc. So there's that. They built that great experience. They wanted to bring that experience into AR if possible. So we created this AR experience where people can actually step into the Roblox world and discover how amazing all this content is in front of them. So they can step in with their phones. They actually walk through this little portal. They investigate all this new UGC. It's updated every month. And they're able to tap through and try it on their avatar in Roblox on the mobile app. So it's this amazing way to connect people to something that was only like this flat 2D experience, but now they can walk into it in 3D and actually see all the objects around them. So an amazing way for people to like step into a surface they've never been able to before. And just another huge shout out to the team at Softworks Interactive who's built a really great relationship with Walmart, who is an amazing client who made this all happen.
Beautiful.
At Meta, a couple years ago, this is not playing. There we go. at Meta a couple years ago, they were getting ready to launch the Quest Pro device. And in addition to the device, they had enabled color pass-through and this entire suite of mixed reality technology available through a web browser. So my team was really lucky to be a part of the launch for this, and we were able to come up with this experience that would demonstrate all of the technology that was available on this new device through the browser. And we partnered with this amazing developer called Foria, based in Australia. Hey guys. And they created this experience for us that is like this really cool game where you find in your space this crazy portal that appears and this spaceship flies through, and you've got to help this spaceship get back to their galaxy. But as you're doing it, you're discovering all the different technology that's available. So you see your full space in color, and you see these augmented objects appear there. You can see that the technology can understand where your walls are and your surfaces are. So things are bouncing off and flying around you and interacting with your space. And you can also anchor different pieces of the experience to different walls, et cetera. And that was totally new. So through this experience, this is really built for like the developer community to understand what's possible. We wanted to place them inside of this world and have a lot of fun while understanding technically everything that's going on around them. And this is still one of the best, this is a couple years old now, it's still one of the best web-based mixed reality experiences that I've seen. I'm going to keep going here. This is called Balloon. This is a mixed reality game that I made with a small group of really talented developers. And we made this as really an experiment to see how we could build something as simple as possible in the mixed reality space that was still a lot of fun to play. So, you know, a lot of VR is very immersive. You're kind of surrounded by worlds of digital assets. And our challenge to ourselves was, how can we make something really fun just using one or two augmented pieces of creativity? And we wanted the room and the environment to be, you know, kind of a main character in this experience. So our creative concept was that, you know, what about playing with a balloon? Like, probably all did this as kids, or I don't know, my kids do it. It annoys me because they're always breaking stuff in the house and leaving the balloons around. Don't get me started. I'm already started, but I'm annoyed already thinking about balloons that my children play with. But that's a subtopic. What if we remembered how fun it was to play with a balloon as kids? And what if we could create that experience in mixed reality? This game has no menus. It has no buttons. All it has is a balloon and a few virtual objects that you can interact with and a scoreboard to keep track of your progress. As you play, the game gets harder, more crazy things happen, but essentially it's just creating an experience where you can bounce a virtual object off of your walls and your furniture, and if you don't, it explodes and it pops. So this has been a really fun project for us. We have able to get hundreds of active users on the Quest store. People are downloading this thing and playing it, which is wild. But it's really one of these simple, magical moments that kind of helps you discover how engaging this kind of technology can be.
And it's so intuitive. You really, as you said, don't need to explain too much. Everybody has done it at some point.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Okay, so the next section is going to go into AI. So I think we have still some time for that. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I don't see many questions. Just kind of applauding the conversation, tech for good, in all its glory. Great discussion, and some questions about kind of measuring the effectiveness of immersive experiences. But I think we can kind of continue into the next section, and I'm sure there's going to be more questions with the AI aspect of the conversation.
Yeah, one piece I do want to quickly cover around measuring effectiveness, you know, as I'm sure the asker is aware of and is implying, is sometimes it can be really tricky to measure this stuff. One of the things that we really loved about building web-based immersive experiences, and one of the things that I'm still excited about on the web, is that when you create something on the web, you know, the brand or the business or whoever's building it then is owning all of the data and all of the information around the interactivity. It's all theirs. Sometimes on a platform, if you're building like an AR experience on a platform like Snap or others, it can be hard to get all of the information that you want. When you build something on the web, you have it all. And when we built like the Fire Escape project or the Spatial Fusion project, we built a couple different experiences that would be triggered based on the device that you access them on. So if I access the device on a headset, or if I access the experience on a mobile device, you're going to the same URL. So you can scale your experience and tailor it for the user. And then you can also track their engagement and what they're doing and how they're behaving. So I think, although I worked at a big platform for a long time, I'm kind of more excited now about these kind of platform-free experiences that allow the builders to have the information to tailor their experiences for their users and be able to understand how people are using them.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I also have a question about the Walmart Discovered experience, or in general, when you create these really engaging experiences, how do you go about also educating and informing the audience to use it? I would imagine Roblox players are used to just the Roblox game. So now you're introducing this AR experience. How did you guys onboard them into the experience? Was that also a creative project?
Yeah, so that AR experience was built on the web. It's a web-based AR experience built on 8th Wall. And building AR on the web, again, is super flexible, right? Because it works for any browser. You don't have to have Instagram or Snap. Any browser on any phone can use it, which is great. You can also promote it in a variety of ways. It's very easy to run, for example, like an ad campaign on Meta, and the button just opens up the browser and people can use the AR experience right there. In the case of the Walmart experience, that was actually triggered by a QR code available only on Roblox gift cards available in Walmart. So like, imagine you're a person who is receiving a gift card, from a parent or a loved one, and you're going to use that on Roblox. And there's a QR code on there that says scan to step inside Walmart Discovered in AR. So again, because it's web-based, there's so many ways to help people discover it via online platforms, physical media like QR codes. There's so many different ways to do it. That's one of the exciting parts about it.
Wow, that's very interesting. I didn't know about that. And our audience loved the balloons, the example that you shared. Again, simple, stupid, and just like, intuitive. That was a really cool example, as you said, onboarded a lot of folks into using these emerging technologies. Cool. Let's get into the conversation about AI.
All right, let me share my screen. All right, good?
Yes, let's go.
Okay, so one of the things we've been talking about this hour is these ideas that kind of transcend technology, whether it's in print or VR. The idea should be the thing that people come away with, right? And one thing that's, I think, really tempting for people like me who are excited about technology and love to build in it is the temptation is sometimes to make work that almost feels like an ad for the technology. Like you probably see this kind of stuff on LinkedIn all the time, like,
Yes.
Llama is now able to do X, or, OpenAI just released this thing. And it's like, that's cool. And that news is important. But like as creative people, it's our job to use those tools in a way that leave people with an idea. And so when I think about AI, I think about what are the things that I can build that, one, express the potential of the technology, but more importantly, the potential of human creativity powered by that technology. And this is even more important in these days of AI now, because AI is capable of kind of like a bad version of what humans do, but it's capable of more than anything else has been capable of. So we need to make sure that we're still infusing this technology with ideas that are built by and for people, and that help us express ideas to each other. And so that's kind of where I start with AI. In everything I build too, I think it's important for creative people to not just focus on like the generative part of generative AI. Like the life cycle of AI is much deeper than that. And it will generate stuff, sure, but that's kind of like the very last, 10% of the journey. Essentially what generative AI is doing is it's learning from data. Data often comes from, a phenomenon like real world data, like weather data, for example, or, stats in a sport. Like that's a real thing that gets turned into data. And then generative AI generates maybe more of that kind of thing or something that's like it. But in order to really create cool concepts and things that connect with people, we should consider everything along that journey and not just the generative tool that OpenAI has built for us, for example, that lets us write poems in Shakespearean verse or something. So I'm going to share some work that tries to expose these different moments in the life cycle of AI. And that, ends up usually generating something cool, but kind of starts in a different place. So this one is called the Impressionist Weather Report. This is a project that I built on the web. And essentially what it does is it takes real-time weather data and it turns that into an impressionist style oil painting generated by AI. So you can go to the website weatherpainting.com. You can type in the name of a town or a zip code or whatever, and it will output an oil painting in just a couple seconds. The way this works is that when you type in your location, it goes to a weather API. It gets that raw data. It sends the raw data to the DALL-E API, and DALL-E returns an oil painting. And what I love about this is that it's able to do something that is really impossible in human terms. Like we could never send thousands of oil painters to go cover every possible location on Earth. Like that's impossible. But that's one of the things that AI can do for us is create at scale and create at a speed that is impossible for people to do. So it's this kind of like collaboration among people and data and generation, I think, that really creates something magical and helps us think about, something like weather in a totally different way. Weather data is pretty utilitarian generally. We check our forecast in the morning to see if we need to bring an umbrella. But like, what if we could build something that like expresses weather in kind of more human terms, something more creative and artistic? So that's weather painting.
Amazing. Wow. That's such a unique way of expression. Awesome.
Yeah, that's a really fun one. Another example that I'll share is this piece that is built to help people find something new to watch. So if you're like me, if you're a film fan, you know about the Criterion Collection, which is this really great distribution company that helps people watch great movies at home. And they have this huge catalog of thousands of movies. And one of the things that I wanted to do was I wanted to use AI to help us find something new to watch in a totally new way. So what I did is I used AI to take a look at the data that we had. And Criterion Collection, I think, has like 2,000 videos or something. And I found a database that had a description of each one of their films, 100 words or something. And so what I did is I asked AI to read all of those descriptions and rank each movie on, a number of criteria. Is it a romance? Is it an adventure? Is it historical, etc.? And so by the end of that journey, it took a while to do that, AI had ranked thousands of movies. And so what I was able to do is build a web interface that lets people tell the website about their life and match them with a movie that is most like their life. So most recommendation systems like, to tell people what to watch based on what they've liked in the past. This system tells people what to watch based on what they're like. And it's a really unique way of matching people. But essentially, AI did not generate a movie. It didn't generate an image. It didn't even generate any copy. It just generated data that I could use to build an experience to help people find something new to watch.
Wow. Such a great way of using the technology. Yes. Yeah. Simplifying and making the experience more seamless.
Yeah, and it's about kind of moving that like creative process further up in the journey. It's not at the end, the generative part. It's at the data part, and it powers something that's very human and helpful. This is one that you may have seen in the last couple of weeks, Nico. This is this idea of like, I was confused about brat this summer. You know, I'm in my 40s. I don't know what brat means. I'm not even meant to know what brat means. But what I wanted to do is I want to know if AI could help me understand what brat means. And so I built Brat Vision. And the way this works is that you can upload a photo to this website, and we'll use AI to look at the photo, and it'll tell us if what we're looking at is brat or not. And so what this does is, you can upload a photo. It sends the photo to Google Cloud Vision, which looks at the image and characterizes it and sends back all sorts of data on the image. That data is then sent to the GPT API, which takes a look at the data, and with the prompt that I've given it to help evaluate what is and what isn't brat, it then will tell you if what you've submitted is brat. So like, again, it's kind of doing everything along the way. It's like, it's creating data by looking at images, and then it's analyzing that data, and then it's generating something in copy form. But it's like just a super ridiculous way to kind of let AI be a part of these cultural conversations, that we're all having.
Have you posted this on TikTok? I'm sure Gen Z would love it.
I did post this on TikTok, and like I was mentioning before, like no one cared. You never know. You never know, Nico, if what you're putting out there is going to resonate or not, but you still got to put it out there.
Yeah, and now with the demure and mindful movement, you can kind of have the two categories.
I know.
Does it fall into this side or that side? Well, very cool. Yeah, I love how you're showcasing so many creative ways of using these technologies. I was at the conference recently, and it was all about AI is good or not. And someone said, I prefer AI and technologies do my laundry, and then I make art rather than having AI make art. But you're showing that it's not always the outcome that is created by the technology. You can use it to help you create your amazing magical experiences. So love that example, and our audience loving it too. Yemi says, well said, Bob. There's so much to AI beyond what's being used for now. And Linda says, that's Brad. And Dominic says, love that you're helping us discover how to leverage AI creatively, and that your stunning body of work really is just treating AI like a magic pencil. Yay, humans. Bravo, Bob. Amazing.
Very nice. How much time do we have, Nico?
We have about 8 minutes, but I want to get to kind of a closure a few minutes. So let's keep going.
Okay, so maybe what I'll do, I'm just checking to see what I've got here.
So much
okay, I'll share one more quick idea, and then we can kind of close up. How's that?
Sounds good.
Okay, so in this project, I wanted to see if I could bring together AI and AR in an interesting way. And so I built an AR effect that allows you to put your own art on museum walls. And this is also built on 8th Wall, and they had some pre-existing modules that were super easy that I could kind of plug and play. But essentially what this piece does is, if you go to a museum in San Francisco called the Legion of Honor, it's my favorite museum in the city. Shout out to the Legion of Honor. And if you point your camera at a specific painting in the museum, you will then be able to replace that painting with an oil painting of your choosing. So what happens is, as you've got the interface up, you can type in any brief you want for an oil painting. We had some really good ones there. We had a cat with a thumbs up. We had dogs playing basketball. I think we had a woman using a banana like a phone. But like, the idea here is that you can kind of customize the gallery experience in a totally weird and new way. And what I love about this is that it helps people, feel like they have a bit of control over these, new technological spaces, and can kind of use them to bring their imagination to life and put it up in context that it would never really be able to be in context before. So this is just a really fun way to kind of bridge the generative world. Baby Jesus wearing sunglasses, one of my favorites. You don't see that in a museum too often. But I love kind of these combinations of things.
Wonderful.
All right.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Let me wrap this up, and then we can have a discussion. I think, as we've done all along, we're kind of breaking out, what are the properties of this technology, and I hope that I've been clear about, like, let's think about data that exists, like that, the descriptions of the films that we had that existed already, but we could categorize it. Let's collect some data, that we could do that almost with anything, what's happening out there in the world, like weather, that we can use to collect and use as inspiration. And then what can we generate at a speed and a scale that people can't? I still think, real photography, real painting, real sketching by real people is infinitely better than what AI is capable of. But sometimes speed and scale are interesting too, that humans aren't capable of. How can we use those things, like generating oil paintings in a museum, or based on weather, or even analyzing thousands of potential brat images every day? That's kind of a superpower that AI has that people don't always. So maybe that can be a part of our kind of like cyborg creative discussion, is like giving AI something to create at scale. So going back to, this kind of world of old print ads, this is a great old ad from The Economist magazine, that if you read The Economist, you will lose the ability to slip out of meetings unnoticed because you'll be so important and valuable to your company. I hope this presentation maybe will help you be a little more important, and be able to slip out of meetings a little more noticed. But thank you for having me. I think for folks who are interested in books, these are 3 really good books that I recommend coming out of this talk. 2 of them are about AI. One of them is called 7 Games by Oliver Reeder. It's about the games that we play as people and how AI has disrupted all of those. There's another one called Atlas of AI by Kate Crawford, which is really about like the crazy amounts of data and the crazy, often unscrupulous things that tech companies do to get that data in order to create AI. And then finally, Umberto Eco's How to Write a Thesis is a book from the 70s, which is about college students writing really good thesis papers, but really it's about ideas, and it's about life, and it's about putting together your thinking in a really interesting way. It's one of my favorite books of all time. Wow. And that's it. Thank you.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much. And I love that you basically did what you said. You demonstrated so many use cases rather than just like talking about AI is not as scary, emergent tech is not as scary. You actually showed us how we can use it in different ways. So wonderful job. Thank you. I would love to know, before we close, kind of like what's next for you personally, how we can all support you, and also what are you excited about the future of all this creative technology industry? What trends are you following?
Yeah, so I mean, what's next for me is just a continuation of this work. I do a lot of consulting and creative contract work for brands and agencies, where if they need some help thinking a little bit differently or exposure to new technology, I might create some ideas for them and maybe build a prototype or 2. That's the kind of work I love doing. And if anyone here needs any of that work, please let me know. I'd love to do it for you. And then as far as technology that I'm excited about goes, I do think there is still a huge opportunity for people to use the raw materials of AI, like APIs that give you direct access to LLMs, and to think about how to use those tools and not just rely on what tech companies have built. Like ChatGPT, for example, is amazing, but that's a tool with specific capabilities. Maybe there's something different that you need to build that might answer a problem for you or for your audience. And so I think that's a space where I continue to see a lot of, way more potential than anything else.
Totally. Create your own GPT, tell your own stories. Really powerful. And where can people find you and support your work?
Yeah, LinkedIn is a great place. I share everything there. So reach out on LinkedIn. I've also got a website. We can share the link for that. But LinkedIn's an awesome place. How weird is that to say? I never thought I would say that, but it's a good place to connect with me.
We all create our micro communities in all platforms. So I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you so much to our amazing community, tuning in, asking questions, sharing your love. We appreciate you. We do this every Tuesday at noon EST. Please tune in again next week. We have another creative technologist joining us, and we are going to continue talking about different ways we can use these technologies for good. Thank you so much, Bob. You're amazing. I can't wait to see more projects from you and more content They're always fun and exciting. I highly recommend everyone to follow Bob on all platforms. He's so cool and so exciting. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, Nico.